1. Setup. Chosen trigger. My friend stole my startup idea, so I crushed his in the market. I was a hopeful, hard-working man in his early 30s who believed in the power of a clean, stubborn dream. I woke before dawn, brewed coffee that tasted like persistence, and filled a whiteboard with lines, numbers, and drawn arrows. I had a partner, the kind who promises you loyalty and then doubles as a mirror that shows every inch of your own fear. He had my back in the early days, and I had his, and we laughed when the world doubted us. Our office was a small room above a choir streaks, the air thick with the smell of coffee, printer ink, and the nervous energy of a plan that felt almost sacred. We wore the same tired hoodies that had become our uniform. I believed in him as I believed in myself, a man who stayed late, who took every call, who saved every note from notebooks, who believed the future would reward honesty. Our families watched us with hopeful eyes, and my wife smiled at the late nights, a small light in a kitchen that smelled of soup and courage. We spoke the same language, a mix of product dreams and stubborn heart. We believed we were building something that would outlast both of us, something that would leave a better life for the kids we did not yet have, but could almost see in the future. I trusted him with the core of the idea, with the sketches, the code, the budget lines, and even the fear that clung to all startup nights. I forgave small slips and promised to grow with him because I saw in him the same edge I saw in the mirror. That trust felt like armor, soft and warm, a shield that kept the wind from pushing us off course. Those early days shaped us into a unit, and we believed nothing could break us. Then the storm came. Inciting incident. The betrayal walked through the door with a cigarette and a grin. He took a chair, leaned in, and said he had found a way to accelerate growth. The words landed like stones. He had brought in a new investor, and that investor did not need my input. Then he did the unthinkable. He handed me a copy of a deck that looked just like ours. Same wording, same diagrams, same ideas. Only the name on the cover was his. He had filed for a patent in his own name, not ours. He announced the company as if we had always been two separate people, as if I had wandered off and left the map. He told the room I was a risk, that I distracted the team, that I did not deserve a seat at the table we had built together. The crowd murmured, not meanly, but with the suspicion that grows when a friend useth your trust to cut you out. My heart emptied, then filled with a cold fire. The betrayal stung in ways I could not name. The words I had spoken to defend partners, to defend ideas, came back to bite me. My hands trembled, my throat tightened, and I stood there with his face on the screen, the image of the man I had defended, the man I had fed with meals and stories about the future. Rising action. I watched his success bloom while mine withered on the vine. The company he claimed as his own grew with the same pace we had hoped for, but the truth behind it was a slower, quieter rot. I fell into a long winter of doubt, of sleepless nights spent scrolling through emails, the smell of ink in the room reminding me of a contract I never signed. I could not tell the world what had happened yet. I might lose the last thing that kept me upright, the last thing I had built with my own hands. So I started to move in the shadows, not with rage, but with a quiet, stubborn plan. I rebuilt what I could, hating the idea of victory that did not have my name on it. I hired a few new engineers, some who believed in our dream, and we rebuilt the code from the ground up, cleaner, faster, better. I studied every pitch he made and learned to counter it with facts, with data, with a calm certainty that the truth would catch up with him. I met with investors who had felt the same sting, who saw through the borrowed veneer. I kept my distance from the old friends who had once cheered. I did not want them to see the ache in me turn to something else, something colder. I learned to sleep again by counting progress, by chasing milestones, by imagining the moment when the scales would tilt. I kept a file of evidence, an honest trail of when and how the theft happened, a map of his lies, a ledger of the money he moved, a ledger I could show to anyone who would listen when the time came. The process changed me. I stopped seeing him as a friend and started seeing him as a lesson, the kind that hurts but teaches. I learned to control my breath, to walk into rooms, with the power of a man who had nothing yet owned everything again, through work, not spite. I found a new pace, a rhythm of preparation, a discipline of patience. And I found the allies whose loyalty did not die when the other man did, the ones who believed that a good deed done in the dark would rise in the light. We built toward a moment of undeniable truth, one that could not be denied by a crowd of curious eyes, one that could not be covered by a smiling face. Climax. The exact moment I strike back came at a major conference, a hall crowded with tens of reporters and 1,000 eyes hungry for a story, the kind of day that makes or ruins a man. He walked onto the stage with that practiced smile, the one he wore the first time we talked about a future we would share. I stood in the wings, a quiet weight in my chest, listening to the crowd cheer for the hero they thought they knew. Then I pressed the switch, not with violence but with undeniable proof. The screen glowed to life with the original sketches, the same lines he claimed to have created alone, the first canned commits I had made, the notes that sat in my notebook like a secret heartbeat. The timestamps showed the truth, stamped with my name and the date we started this work, before his borrowed fame. The room went silent, a breath held too long. He tried to respond with a smile and a lie, but the data did not lie. The investor chair leaned back as the evidence spoke with a cold, factual weight. He stumbled over words, the truth slipping out in small, shattered pieces, as the crowd shifted toward me with the relief of someone who had waited for a storm to pass. My own voice was steady, a calm river under a grey sky. I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that request. When the last slide showed the patent page with my signature and his misfiled corporate name erased, the room released a wave of whispers that grew into a chorus of agreement. He stood there with his mouth open, the fraud naked, the crowd turning away from him with the same disgust a betrayed partner holds for a thief. The moment did not require a shout. His whole world collapsed in the space of a breath, and mine rose on the other side, not with triumph alone, but with the weight of 1,000,000 small choices that kept me from breaking. Redemption arc. From that wreck, I rose a new man. A man who did not celebrate the ruin of another, but honored the truth. The ruins concede something better. I started a foundation to protect young founders from the pain I carried. A place to teach them how to guard their ideas, to draft stronger agreements, to read the room for signs of intestinal cold that might indicate a theft is brewing. I wrote, and the pages found a voice in people who believed in honesty and resilience. The book did not just tell a story. It handed a map for people who faced the same loss and asked them to walk it with their own courage. My new company grew as a shield for small teams, a place where a mentor could offer guidance on how to build and protect what you love, how to stand up to the punch that comes when greed tries to take the heart out of your work. I chose mentors who had their own scars, people who could show the way from the dark to the dawn without pretending that the struggle did not sting. We offered affordable legal advice, productive networks, and a framework for honest competitions that did not require pushing others down. I learned to listen to the stories of others and to give back what I had learned, the very weapon that helped me endure. A patient, clear voice that could quiet the fear in a room full of young dreamers. I turned the pain into purpose, and the purpose kept me moving when the old flame of revenge looked like a long, cold night. My story stopped being about personal justice only and began to become a beacon for others who walk through the same fire. A reminder that the hardest battles can yield a better future if you carry them with care, if you bend the bitterness into something that feeds more life than it consumes. Ending, a calm, resolute note, spoken to you now, a promise carried in a steady breath. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.